we need to define in the planning process is the scope management. It is required to ensure that the project includes all the work required and only the work required to complete the project successfully. It's primarily concerned with defining and controlling what is included and what is not included in the project. This point may seem pretty easy. We are talking about the definition of what the project is, but it's not that easy at all. First of all, in many cases, the customer doesn't have all the competencies in order to specify the scope completely. I mean, if I'm buying a new bridge, probably I do not have all the competencies to define the new bridge properly. And this is the main reason why I go to another company to ask for their competencies and for their experience in doing this. Second, the project is, by definition, something new, something unique. There might be changes throughout the project regarding what the customer wants to do and what we can do and what we can't do. So, for these reasons, we need to clearly define what is the scope and how to manage it in the scope management process. First, define the project scope. Second, validate the project scope. Third, translate the scope into a work breakdown structure, which will be defined later. Fourth, launch the scope controlling phase, needed to monitor the project scope consistency throughout the project. The one who is fully responsible for this process is actually the project manager, collaboratively with the customer and with the sponsor. To enable the entire process, we need to clearly define what is the scope and what is out of scope for the project. And the scope statement is the perfect tool to do so. The scope statement is a document with 6 main chapters: product scope description, acceptance criteria, deliverables, exclusions, constraints, and assumptions. The first one, product scope description, is the description of what we expect as project result. We need to be as precise as possible. We should add any useful information, including sketches and concepts. We need to use every possible means to ensure that the client fully understands the project scope. Our ultimate goal is to be aligned with our client and to validate it. In a certain way, if you were able to develop this first chapter perfectly, the other chapters will be useless because no doubt would exist between me and the customer about the final deliverables. But normally, it's very difficult to write a document in which every single thing is clear in the same way for both parties. So what we do is to add some more chapters in order to make sure that the scope statement is clear. The second chapter we add is called acceptance criteria. The basic idea is to identify a list of criteria that, at the end of the project, the customer will check to accept or not the final result of the project. How can I be sure that he or she would accept it? Because I've already identified with the customer the list of different elements, the tests to be done, the performance levels, and so on. So, to be sure that our project is accepted, we need to clearly validate the acceptance criteria with the customer. The third chapter in the scope statement is the one of the deliverables. Each project is actually producing several deliverables and not just one. For example, think about the development of a new car. You will release the final car, but also the production process, the communication campaign, the training for the dealers, and so on. So there are many deliverables connected with each single project. Thus, a good practice is to define all the deliverables in advance and agree with the customer to have them validated during the project development. Indeed, there are both final deliverables to be delivered at the end of the project and intermediate deliverables to be delivered and validated during the execution. Chapter number 4 is probably the most important one in a scope statement: the exclusions. This chapter identifies the out of scope, all those activities we are agreeing with the customer that are not part of the project. I might even be executed them for another project or for another customer, but we agreed that they are not part of this project. For example, I will create a new operating system, a new system for managing the warehouses, but the data migration is not part of the project. Maybe the customer really wants it, but this is the right moment to understand if this is part of the project or not. So exclusions or out of scope is a very important chapter. The fifth chapter is the one about constraints. There are actually several elements that can limit the decisional power of the project manager or of the project team. Typical examples are time and budget. Still, there could be also technical constraints, for example, the compatibility with a given information system, like SAP. The sixth and the final chapter is about assumptions. In some cases, the project start may be subject to specific tasks that do not depend on the project manager or the project team. For example, I need to deliver a new railway station, but I need to start working on the place and I need to obtain the permissions for excavating and moving equipment and materials to the construction site. If I do not receive the permission on time, I will have to delay the whole project. But the point is that I'm not responsible for that permission, so I need to remind the customer that it is his or her responsibility to obtain the excavation permit. These 6 chapters, validated with the customers, represent the starting point of the scope management process, with a clear definition of the scope, what is and what is not part of the project. It can change, and it will, but in this way we have a clear starting point.